Hello, Fundamentals of Design. This is Mr. Clark here on our virtual day. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to just go over what I would have gone over in class, and then I'm going to show you as far as what you're responsible for submitting today by the end of the day. And I do mean by the end of the actual day and not the school day. So you have until 11:59 p.m. tonight to be able to hand in the following material. So hand in this in before midnight on Wednesday night. So we're going to talk about, this is like your first official day working on your independent project. So this is going to be something that you're going to have 5 full class periods to work on. This is class period number 1. And this is actually a good class for you to be at home without your art kit, because this is going to be more idea development stage. And so all you really are going to need is pencil, paper, and if you didn't have anything, you could even use Art Studio and submit drawings that way. Preliminary work for this assignment, as you can see here, is that the minimum is 2 small sketches, and so that's all I'm requiring you to submit today is 2 small sketches. If you have other photos and work like that, you are also going to be responsible for that when I grade your final project. You don't have to worry about that much though today. I basically want to see the beginnings of your thought process and your consideration of the ideas. I'm going to go over sort of a few things here, but if you needed to go over those options, as far as the 3 options, you can see on the grade sheet here, you are actually going to have to check off which option you are pursuing. If you go to the course, you're going to see Unit 2 Conceptual Art, and then you will see Independent Project, and in that folder you will see 3 Google Slide documents, and each one of them are the examples that we've gone over in class, but I'm not going to do that just now. So today, right now, I'm just going to go over slides from a particular artist, and then a student example, and then I'm going to tell you where to submit your preliminary drawings to, and that's going to be it for today. So this is Edward Hopper, and I want to look at him because he's not really known as a conceptual artist, but I do think he's one of the most important artists of the 20th century for a number of reasons. But it's working with this idea of repeating objects, and we start to see more importance to those objects when we start seeing them in multiple pieces. And this is part of the idea of option 2, being able to repeat things. And with the example I showed you, the student example was with the umbrellas, if you recall. You can look at that option if you need to. But anyway, so here's a piece from Edward Hopper. Here's another one, and he worked with this idea, which is referred to as an implied narrative. This idea that we are only seeing sort of a section of like a larger story, and the artist is only giving us like a small piece of that information. And so to think of it another way, it'd be like getting a page or like even a chapter out of a novel, and then what happens is you, the viewer or the reader, have to then fill in all the blanks yourself. So by having only this sort of starting point of a story that's implied, we, the viewer, are now sort of thinking about what's that woman looking at. She's looking off to the distance. It feels like it's very important. And the artist doesn't want to tell us what that is that we have to sort of figure that out ourselves. And the reason why this is important, especially with conceptual art, is this idea of the viewer is important. So when you create this piece of artwork, yes, you should be challenging yourself from a material standpoint and from a conceptual standpoint, but you also have to consider the viewer and think about what's going to be challenging for them, what's going to be, bringing them into the equation here. And I think that's what a lot of good art in the last 100 years does. And it's not just about sort of portraying someone's skill as an artist or making something that looks beautiful and creating this sort of visual eye candy. Is that we're trying to get more of this cognitive approach and interaction. So this piece here, I think this is important because this idea of repeating something in all the pieces that I've showed you, Edward Hopper is repeating windows in a lot of his pieces. And he saw them symbolically as a number of different things. They sort of feel like a gateway between us and the outside world, but they also act as a barrier. So they're sort of contradicting, itself and working in this sort of dual sense. And this figure here is sort of in a state of contemplation, is that you can tell she's sort of thinking about her day or the world or whatever's going on, and we, the viewer, are supposed to sort of connect the dots and be able to create that narrative, to piece it together. And so by the window, it sort of isolates her, is that she's sort of separate from everything else, but then also thinking about things beyond herself. And so the windows, I think, by repeating them, really have that ability to do that. This is probably his most famous piece. This is called Nighthawks at the Diner. And again, we're just looking at figures in this implied narrative, and not every single piece he does looks like this. I just pulled out examples from his career that really emphasize this point really well. So think about why you're developing your idea, how you want to involve the viewer, and hopefully, we can come up with some things that are going to really challenge us, the viewer, to look at. There's more stuff there about his, basically everything I just said, so I don't think we need to belabor the point. All right, so as far as today, you are going to be submitting 2 sketches. They do not need to be full value, but they should consider the entire composition. And by that, I mean, like the examples that I showed you for the acrylic painting, is this idea of having a square around an edge, is that they shouldn't be ideas floating in the center of the page, is that they should have little boxes drawn, and then that way you're sort of considering how much space the entirety of the page is making up. So I would also even consider at this point getting photo references for your ideas. So we shouldn't be, if, instead of drawing stick figures for your idea, just go find images of people doing that act at whatever if you need somebody like running, instead of drawing stick figures running around, go find some references. It'll help your idea even from the beginning stage, I think, quite a bit. So I want to look at one student project here real quick. This is an example. Here's her one idea, and she chose option 2 as far as repeating something multiple times and thinking about it differently. Obviously, if we're seeing a live chicken on the one side and one that's dead on the other, we are thinking very differently about it. But here's the idea she actually chose. She started working with this sort of idea of freedom and the wild and zoos and monkeys in particular. And you can see here that she's not only developing image work of monkeys, but she's also really thinking about the environment of the background and how this is sort of all going to pull together. She also submitted photo references. She labeled, you can't see the label underneath my screen here, but this is a photo that she took that she used as reference, and then here's 2 other images that she got off the internet as reference. And then when she turned those in, she also labeled those that they were taken by her or by somebody else. Here is her final piece. This is wide open to you as far as what materials you're able to use. She really liked working with the acrylic paint on the current project, so she decided to do that here as well. A couple of things of note, I think, that are really interesting. She spent a lot of time developing that image on the left side there. And I think it really creates this sense of atmosphere, and it enhances her conceptual idea, which is, this monkey in its environment, sort of swinging about with this very free, the sense of freedom. And then we have this cage here on the right. And I think it's really interesting is that we're not even seeing the eyes or the face of the monkey. We're just seeing the hands on the cage. And it's sort of connecting all of the things that she really wants to do. So the idea here isn't really that complex. It's just that the follow-through of it is really good. So that's all you're going to need to be able to turn in today is the preliminary work. And next class period, we'll get into the project further. But for your asynchronous day, this is going to be the main part of your assignment. Okay.